70 pounds. That's not just a weight difference. That's the gap between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis when they step into the ring this November. To put that in perspective, that's like a welterweight fighting a light heavyweight. Except Davis has never even fought above 140 pounds, while Paul walks around at over 200. In boxing, we have weight classes for a reason, and this fight is about to test whether elite-level skill can overcome what might be the largest weight disadvantage in modern professional boxing history. Davis has knocked out 28 of his 30 opponents, but he's never faced anyone who could physically manhandle him in the clinch or whose jab alone carries the power of his hardest shots. This isn't just David versus Goliath. This is a technical puzzle that could redefine what we think we know about size versus skill in combat sports. When we break down the physical metrics, the disparity becomes even more staggering. Jake Paul stands 6 feet 1 inch with a 76-inch reach and typically weighs between 190 to 210 pounds on fight night as a cruiserweight. Gervonta Davis measures 5 feet 5.5 inches with a 67.5-inch reach and has built his entire career between 130 and 140 pounds as a lightweight. That's an 8-inch height advantage, an 8.5-inch reach advantage, and a 70-pound weight difference, the equivalent of Davis carrying around an extra lightweight fighter on his back. From a physics standpoint, this means Paul's jab doesn't just reach Davis first, it carries 50% more body mass behind every punch. Davis needs to cover significantly more ground to get inside Paul's range, and when he does land, he's trying to hurt someone who outweighs him by the same margin as Davis outweighs most featherweights. The reach disparity alone means Paul can theoretically land 2 punches for every one Davis throws, simply because his arms are longer and he doesn't need to step in to connect. These physical differences become even more pronounced when we examine how each fighter approaches combat. Jake Paul operates as a textbook orthodox boxer-puncher who relies on disciplined fundamentals. He controls distance with a steady jab, sets up power shots with simple 1-2 combinations, and prefers methodical mid-range exchanges where he can use his size. Paul's weakness emerges when faster opponents slip inside his jab range, where his relatively flat-footed movement and high guard become liabilities. Gervonta Davis represents the complete opposite approach. He's an elite counterpuncher with explosive timing who specializes in compact power shots, particularly devastating left hooks and uppercuts that have produced a 93% knockout ratio. Davis uses sophisticated head movement and angular footwork to create openings, then detonates with precision when opponents least expect it. The fundamental clash here is that Paul's entire game plan revolves around keeping the fight long and technical, using his reach to pepper Davis from the outside. Meanwhile, Davis must solve an almost impossible puzzle. How do you slip past an 8.5-inch reach advantage to land the kind of close-range power shots that have made your career, especially when your opponent can literally lean his weight on you and disrupt your positioning? This becomes even more complex when you consider that Davis has built his reputation fighting opponents closer to his own size, where his inside game and angular movement have room to operate. The speed versus power dynamic creates the most intriguing technical matchup in this fight. Davis possesses significantly superior hand speed, reaction time, and timing, attributes that have allowed him to counter-punch between opponents' combinations and land fight-ending shots before they even realize they're in danger. His ability to read openings and explode with precision has been the foundation of his undefeated record. However, Paul's power equation operates on completely different physics. When you apply the basic formula of force equals mass times acceleration, even Paul's slower punches carry devastating weight simply because he's throwing them with 70 pounds more body mass behind each shot. A casual jab from Paul generates the same impact as a committed power punch from many fighters in Davis's weight class. This creates a fascinating paradox. Davis needs to be perfect, slipping Paul's shots while landing clean counters, but Paul only needs to be lucky once. One clean right hand from a 200-pound cruiserweight could end the fight instantly, regardless of Davis's chin or defensive skills. The critical question becomes whether Davis's precision and timing can consistently find openings against a slower but exponentially more powerful opponent, or whether the cumulative effect of absorbing even glancing blows from someone 70 pounds heavier will wear him down before he can solve the puzzle. The defensive dynamics reveal perhaps the most concerning technical challenges for both fighters. Paul typically employs a high guard and tends to be flat-footed, which has proven problematic against faster, more mobile opponents who can slip his jab and counter before he can reset. His defensive struggles become most apparent when he overcommits to power shots, leaving himself exposed to quick counters, a tendency that could be catastrophic against someone with Davis's timing. However, Davis faces an unprecedented defensive puzzle that goes beyond traditional boxing technique. While his slick head movement, shoulder roll, and angular footwork have made him nearly untouchable at lightweight, he's never encountered an opponent who can physically overpower his defensive positioning through sheer size. The most critical issue emerges in close quarters. Davis has built his career on inside fighting, using tight angles and compact shots to devastate opponents in the pocket. But against Paul, those same positions become dangerous traps where Paul's 70-pound weight advantage transforms every clinch into a potential wrestling match that Davis simply cannot win. Paul can lean his full body weight on Davis, disrupt his balance, and neutralize the very inside positioning that has made Davis's career. This means Davis must somehow stay close enough to land his power shots while avoiding the clinches and rough tactics that Paul's size makes almost inevitable. The fight's progression through 10 rounds reveals a shifting landscape of advantages that could determine the outcome. In the early rounds, Paul's size advantage reaches its maximum potential. He's fresh, strong, and able to fully utilize his reach and weight to control distance and pace. Davis faces his most dangerous period here, needing time to solve the range puzzle while absorbing punishment from a much larger opponent. Paul will likely dominate these opening frames simply through physical imposition. The middle rounds present the critical turning point. If Davis survives the early assault and begins to solve the technical problems of getting inside Paul's reach, his superior timing becomes crucial. Historically, Paul's conditioning has shown vulnerabilities in longer fights, with his movement slowing noticeably and his punch output decreasing after round 6. This is where the size advantage that dominated early begins to work against him. Carrying 70 extra pounds becomes a liability when fatigue sets in. The late rounds could completely flip the script. Davis has consistently grown stronger as fights progress, using his superior conditioning and ring intelligence to capitalize on tired opponents. As Paul's legs stiffen and his defensive reactions slow, the same reach advantage that protected him early becomes less effective. The question becomes whether Davis can survive the early storm when Paul's physical advantages are overwhelming, or if 70 pounds of accumulated damage over multiple rounds makes it impossible to mount a late comeback regardless of conditioning advantages. When we examine boxing history for comparable size versus skill matchups, the precedents are both limited and concerning for Davis. Floyd Mayweather's victory over Conor McGregor demonstrated that elite boxing skill could overcome size, but that involved only a 15-pound weight difference, a fraction of what Davis faces here. James Toney's successful move up to heavyweight to defeat John Ruiz showed a skilled boxer could handle a 50-pound jump, but Toney was naturally a bigger man who had previously campaigned at cruiserweight before cutting down. The harsh reality is that a 70-pound disadvantage at the elite level is virtually unprecedented in modern boxing history. Most legendary fighters who moved up in weight did so gradually, 1 or 2 divisions at most, and often struggled even then. Sugar Ray Leonard had mixed results moving from welterweight to light heavyweight, a much smaller jump than Davis is attempting. Roberto Duran's move up from lightweight was successful, but he only climbed 2 weight classes over several years. Davis is essentially attempting to jump from lightweight directly to cruiserweight in a single fight against an opponent with legitimate power at that weight class. The mathematical reality is stark. Weight classes exist because they work, and boxing's governing bodies have spent over a century refining these divisions, based on countless examples of what happens when size mismatches occur at the professional level. The most critical unknown in this fight centers on what happens when clean shots actually land. Davis has built his reputation on having an iron chin at lightweight. He's absorbed power shots from fighters like Ryan Garcia, Isaac Cruz, and Rolando Romero without going down. But he's never faced the concussive force of a legitimate cruiserweight puncher. When Paul connects, he's delivering the equivalent of a heavyweight's jab with every straight right hand. The question isn't whether Davis can take a punch, it's whether his lightweight chin can absorb the accumulated damage from someone throwing punches with 70 pounds more mass behind them. From the opposite angle, Paul's chin presents a different puzzle. He's shown he can be hurt by smaller men like Tommy Fury, who buzzed him with shots that would barely register against cruiserweight competition. Davis's precision and timing could potentially find the perfect shot that doesn't require overwhelming power, a well-timed counter that exploits Paul's tendency to overextend. The body shot dynamic adds another layer. Paul presents a significantly larger target area, making it easier for Davis to land to the midsection. But Davis's compact frame becomes vulnerable to Paul's naturally heavier body shots that could break ribs or sap his wind. Ultimately, this becomes a question of thresholds. Can Davis's proven lightweight durability withstand cruiserweight punishment? And can Paul's questionable chin handle the most precise puncher he's ever faced? When we strip away the spectacle and focus purely on the technical realities, this fight presents an almost unsolvable equation for Davis. Paul's advantages are mathematical: reach control that dictates range, punching power amplified by 70 pounds of body mass, physical strength that neutralizes Davis's inside game, and durability that comes from sheer size. Davis's advantages are artistic: elite timing, precision, speed, and ring intelligence that have made him unbeatable at his natural weight. But here's the harsh technical truth: Paul has multiple paths to victory, while Davis needs everything to go perfectly. Paul can win by controlling distance, landing one big shot, or simply wearing Davis down through accumulated damage over 10 rounds. Davis must solve the range problem, survive early punishment, avoid clinches, and find the perfect counter, all while absorbing punishment from someone significantly larger. This isn't about questioning Davis's skill or heart. It's about acknowledging that physics and anatomy impose limits that even elite technique struggles to overcome. Boxing history shows us that when size gaps approach this magnitude, skill alone isn't enough. This fight will either prove that elite boxing skill can transcend physical limitations, or it will demonstrate why weight classes have protected fighters for over a century. What's your take? Have we ever seen a technical boxer overcome this kind of size disadvantage at the elite level, or is this simply too much physics for even Davis's skills to handle? Drop your technical analysis in the comments, and if you want more breakdowns like this, hit that subscribe button. We'll be covering every angle of this unprecedented matchup as fight night approaches.